And now we cross over to our Oh Soo-young for a global insight and an in-depth look at important developments in world affairs.
Thanks very much, Woolgun. It is indeed time for Global Insight. North Korea last week claimed to have tested a new and improved intercontinental ballistic missile, raising alarm in South Korea, the United States, and around the world. Since then, analysts have expressed doubt over whether the projectile was really the regime's latest model. But it's clear that North Korea does remain, as ever, a threat to peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula and in the region as well. Now, all eyes are on the incoming Yoon Suk-yeol administration and how its North Korea policy will shape up after it takes office in May. We discussed this today with Bruce W. Bennett, adjunct defense researcher at the RAND Corporation and author of various books, including Preparing for the Possibility of a North Korean Collapse. We also connect with Kim Young-jun, professor of Korea National Defense University and member of South Korea's National Security Advisory Board to the president. Very warm welcome to you both. And, well, beginning with you, Dr. Bennett, joining us from California. Now, North Korea last week claimed to have tested a new intercontinental ballistic missile, the Hwasong-17, last week. But analysts in Seoul and Washington are now saying that it may have actually been an older model, the Hwasong-15. Are you surprised by this possible exaggeration by the North? And what difference would it make in terms of threat and capability?
Oh, not at all surprised. North Korea does a lot of deception in their activities. I think we have to recognize that they had some missile that failed the previous week on the 16th of March, and they'd had two previous launches that the U.S. and the South Korean government said had been parts, at least, of the Hwasong-17. What we don't know is were those previous tests parts, or were they actual failures as well? For all we know, at this stage, we could have had 3 Hwasong-17 failures. Kim wasn't going to continue with even one failure that he couldn't explain. So I think at this stage, we've got to assume that Kim went with the best he had available, which was the Hwasong-15. But that means a much lower threat in terms of what we would potentially be facing from North Korea. The Hwasong-15 probably can't quite reach to San Francisco with a nuclear weapon. The Hwasong-17 probably can reach to most of the U.S. if it ever works.
Right, well, very concerning, regardless of its, progress on Hwasong-17. And, well, its provocation was largely expected as the new South Korean administration will take office next month, in May, but almost next month. But in April, though, Professor Kim, there are perhaps more provocations coming from North Korea, as April is a very key, important month for the ruling regime, which is going to mark the 110th birthday of its founder, Kim Il-sung. Should we then expect to see something bigger? I mean, what are you expecting to see?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I'm happy to see Dr. Bennett as well. Sure, it seems that North Korea already decided its policy towards South Korea and the U.S. for the next 5 years under this new Cold War circumstances like the U.S.-China competition and the Russian-Ukraine war. North Korea thought that it would be difficult for productive negotiation with the U.S. for a while. And more importantly, China and Russia will not join the U.S.-led UN sanction. So North Korea will continue to develop its nuclear missile capability during this time, using this opportunity. So North Korea's decision for going nuclear and missile is also target its domestic audience because they already suffer from the economic and COVID-19 situation. So North Korea need it. So I think it's, in April, we are able to expect something bigger provocation from the North Korea.
And Professor Kim, with South Korea's conservative president-elect Yoon coming into office in May, do you think North Korea is going to scale up its provocations then and possibly even resume nuclear testing? That's you, Professor Kim.
All right. Yeah. So I think that there is a high possibility about the nuclear test. Why not? The Yoon administration already showed a strong posture against North Korea and no false action without actual denuclearization process of the North Korea. So and North Korea emphasized the reaction on the ROK U.S.-Japan relation, but the Yoon administration emphasized on ROK U.S.-Japan alliance and a strong ROK U.S. military exercise, including FTX. So as well as also additional mention about the THAAD deployment as well. So North Korea will be able to do more strong action, including nuclear tests, possibly in this year as well.
And Dr. Bennett, there are growing concerns that the likes of China, Russia and North Korea are going to work together and collaborate to weaken America, and that Pyongyang testing its ICBMs might not necessarily be a bad thing for Moscow and Beijing. What are your views on this?
Oh, I would take a step back and say, I don't think it's an issue of going to. I think it is an issue of has been. I think they've been working together in many ways. Where did North Korea get all of the technology that it's using for these missiles? I think at least some of it probably has come from Russian scientists, if not the Russian government. Maybe some from China as well. So they are working together, they're supporting each other. North Korea justifies Russia in his invasion of the Ukraine. This is an interesting relationship and a difficult justification. I think they will continue to do so. So what do we expect from North Korea as a result? As Professor Kim has said, I think we can expect within the next short period of time, perhaps in the next weeks, another ICBM test. They do have to, now that they've been told that they didn't succeed with the Hwasong 17, they probably will want to demonstrate that. But I think a nuclear test is also coming. They've got to yet demonstrate a warhead that can go on the Hwasong 17 and actually re-enter the atmosphere. And at this stage, they don't seem to have demonstrated that. And that's something which then they have to have an appropriate warhead that they have tested and make sure it would work.
Professor Kim, it's quite clear that the new Yoon administration is not going to be making the big, extravagant, very generous gestures to win over North Korea as outgoing President Moon did in his attempts to build Korean peace. What do you think is going to be the new president's priority, and what kind of creative solutions do you think the administration could bring to the table?
Right. At this moment, it seems very difficult to find a magic solution to bring North Korea to a negotiation table and creative methodology to solve this kind of problem. North Korea will not join without concrete suggestion of the U.S. And North Korea already said it's so far, like the destruction of Yongbyon nuclear complex in Hanoi, but it was failed. So we will see North Korea provocation like the second Cheonan sinking incident or second Yeonpyeong Island attack, even including the 2017 war scenario under the Trump administration due to North Korea-U.S. tension increase. So at the moment, to be honest, it is very difficult to find creative methodology by the Yoon administration.
Well, Dr. Bennett, it seems that Seoul and Washington are going to have to try and do something to learn from previous experiences. Past President Barack Obama's strategic patience was heavily criticized for not working, and Donald Trump's bromance approach wasn't exactly successful either. So then, what should South Korea and the United States do in order to adapt their North Korea policy?
Well, I think this is a case where we need a mixed policy. Policy one part would be to try to address the impasse on negotiation. Why wait for North Korea to come to the negotiating table? Why don't we put a proposal out in the international community? Say this is what we're prepared to do, and North Korea, you can choose it or you cannot. But why don't we show initiative that we are not hostile, that we are prepared to deal with North Korea, and show our unity in working South Korea and the United States together. Meanwhile, we need a more positive response to North Korea. North Korea has now done so far this year 15 missiles that they've launched. why aren't we deterring that? We have plenty of power to deter it, but we haven't been successful. The answer is we haven't found the right measures, because deterrence is all about convincing an adversary that the cost will be greater than the advantage it has to gain. I think we keep forgetting the cost of information. Kim is absolutely terrified by outside information. He called it a cancer, a vicious cancer that was corrupting the morals of his younger generation. Well, fine, let's use some outside information. Let's tell him you do another launch and you are going to face 500,000 USB drives in Pyongyang carrying K-pop and dramas and so forth. Let's give him a cost that he has to pay.
Professor Kim, South Korea and the United States are expected to strengthen their bilateral alliance under the Yoon administration. And while the president-elect has mentioned placing additional anti-missile defense systems in the country, do you think the North's recent ICBM provocation really strengthens the case for this?
Yeah, sure. The strong action will lead to a strong reaction. Definitely, North Korean provocation will lead to the reaction of the administration, and also they have to keep their promise in strengthening U.S. extended deterrence and also additional anti-missile defense system against the North Korea provocation. And also they have to show what is different from the Moon Jae-in's peace process. So absolutely, South Korea will like to strengthen their alliance with the U.S., possibly with Japan as well. So I think it's a North Korea provocation is not good for the Yoon administration peace initiative. And I really support Dr. Bennett's suggestion. We have to try something, K-pop or some like K-culture into North Korean society in waking up North Korean young generation. So we need to have some kind of discussion about it with the U.S.
And Dr. Bennett, well, it seems now that South Koreans, the members of the public, are now perceiving a greater sense of threat from China and really prioritizing a value-based cooperation with the US rather than just focusing on North Korea issues. What do you make of this change, and what do you hope to see from South Korea's incoming administration in its overall foreign policy?
Well, I think you have to step back and say it's not just South Koreans who are recognizing a Chinese threat. It's only been a little over a year that Americans have been seriously recognizing a Chinese threat. So this is a case where both of our countries are becoming aware that China poses a long-term and significant threat to our best interests. And we need to start working together on dealing with this. But South Korea faces a much more difficult problem with its economy so dependent upon exports and imports from China. So this is a case where the U.S. has got to be a little patient. We've got to be prepared to work with South Korea. But things like the THAAD missile defense system, which President-elect Yoon has spoken of, that would really be very effective, not only against North Korean missiles, but also against Chinese. So we have to look for ways of strengthening the defense in South Korea so that it is a defense which covers all of the ranges of threats that could be posed. And that raises a very interesting set of new issues, including the North Korean nuclear threat. It's been decades since we've worried about nuclear warfighting, but as the ancient Roman general said, if you want peace, prepare for war. If you're ready and you're powerful enough, no one's going to attack you. So we need to start doing those preparations so that we deter both North Korea and China.
Well, I'm afraid we're out of time here, so this is where we'll have to wrap up this interview. And that was Bruce W. Bennett at the RAND Corporation and Kim Young-jun, Professor of Korea National Defense University. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.